Hello, everyone. This is Sean from the Soccer Nostalgia blog. I have the pleasure to interview German Werder Bremen football fan, Mr. Hanno Büchner. This interview is separate from a podcast series. This video interview will serve as a companion piece to a written blog presentation on Werder Bremen's Cup Winner Cup adventure in the 1991-92 season. Hello, Hanno. Welcome.
Yeah, thank you very much for your invitation.
Thank you. Can you introduce yourself and your trajectory into football?
I'm 54 years old, work as an editor and lawyer, and I was born about 10 miles away from the Weserstadion, where obviously Werder Bremen played their home games. You could call me a lifelong fan, apart from the first 5 or 6 years, maybe. But then my father took me, I think maybe 1975 or 76 for the first time. And from then on, gradually, I started to get into Werder Bremen more and more. Was a season ticket holder for many years, most notably in the 1980s and 1990s. And then my first daughter was born and became more like a television and radio supporter by then. Yeah, but still very much into it, watching home games and away games with my family, with my brother and my cousin every other weekend. It's not such a pleasure these days, of course, because fighting relegation, but the last three games were all right. But the whole year of 23 was a bit poor, obviously. So we hope 24 will be better, but it won't get as good as 1992 or so. And it won't be the foreseeable future, I think.
Let's go back in time.
Yeah.
Can you describe the state of the affairs at Werder Bremen in the fall of 1991?
They had just won the German Cup in the third attempt, of course, after losing two finals in 1989 and 1990. So 1991, they won the final, and it was all about stability on a high level, I would think. They won the championship in 1988. It was the second domestic title in 3 years. So feelings were generally on a high. But as it is, expectations rise, of course, and some people were slightly disappointed. I was in that group. To refer, there was a bit of lack of ambition in the transfer market because most notably, a couple of good strikers had left. Kalle Riedle had left, Burgsmüller had left, Ordenewitz had left. Only veteran Klaus Allofs, who was coming in. When he came in, I think he was 34 years old. We thought it was on a high level, but a bit more could have been done and was done in the summer of 1992. But feelings were we're playing another good season, getting into the UEFA Cup, and let's see what the international season will bring. And it brought us the cup, of course.
Yes, and we have to remind everyone that at this point, Werder Bremen manager Otto Rehhagel had been in charge for a decade now and had transformed the club into a force in German football.
Yeah.
And as you mentioned, Werder Bremen had lost the 1989 DFB Pokal against Borussia Dortmund, and in 1990 they lost to Kaiserslautern before finally winning in 1991. Can you describe where you were in life as this season started?
Well, I had ended my civilian service. I was about 21 years old and was about to start my law studies in autumn. There had been talk of King Otto II in Germany because that was due to several vice championships in the 1980s. And strangely, it seemed to happen again in the cup because they lost two finals. So there was a lot of satisfaction in the summer of 1991 because he had shown it to everyone that he can not even win German championships, but also German cups. So there was a lot of satisfaction in that. That was where I was in life, looking forward to the season, to some international adventure as well. Well, nearly 22 years old, like what you were doing in life at this period in your life, you know.
Let's discuss this 1991-92 season and
Yeah.
look at the off-season transfer activity. What were your thoughts of the comings and goings of the new players?
I mentioned before, coming in was Thorsten Legert. He was a left back or left midfielder with a cannon-like left shot. In Germany, you say the shot was like a horse's shot. And Stefan Krohn was coming in, striker from Bochum as well. Nobody really important left the club. It was typical of Rehagel's way of seeing things. His collective was working in his eyes and in our eyes as well, just having won the cup. So he didn't see any reason to ring the changes. So no real important player left the club. And those two coming in, that was hardly very impressive. I mean, Legert, we knew he scored some great goals from distance. Stefan Krohn was, I think, an average Bundesliga striker. Hardly very impressed. But we knew what we had at the time. And for Reagel, it was like a puzzle. The players were doing it, they're playing for him. So it was always seemed like a danger for him. If he change a piece of the puzzle, it might not work out anymore. That was his way of going about it. To nowadays, it seems very, very strange that in 4 years, you change just 3 positions in the whole team when you change 5 or 6 positions every year nowadays. But that was, at the time, his way of doing it and being successful.
Yes. And we should mention also that Kay Wenschlag, another forward, arrived from Rotation Berlin.
Yeah.
And also Lars Unger he moved up from the youth team.
Yeah, but they never played. I mean, nice guys,
Mhm.
but they never played any role in the team.
Yeah.
Hardly ever played.
As far as the departure, the only one was Oliver Freund, who went to Hanover, but again, he rarely featured for Werder Bremen either.
Right.
Yeah.
I think he strangely featured when they met again in the semi-final of the Cup in 1992, and he scored a penalty in the shootout against Werder. But as you mentioned, he never played any notable role for the club.
Let's discuss the backbone of the team that season and your thoughts on the team. In goal, we have Oliver Reck. He'd been there for many seasons, 1988 Bundesliga winner. We have other veterans like Uli Borovka, the Norwegian Rune Bratseth, Johnny Utten, Gunnar Sauer, Thomas Schaff, Manfred Bokenfeld. So a solid defense with many veterans. The midfield with the likes of Gunther Hammann, another veteran, Dieter Eltz, Marco Bode, Thomas Wolter, Uwe Hartgen, all solid players.
Yes, I mean, when we look at the team that played in the final in 1992, I think the real backbone of the team was a defensive system. And Rune Bratseth was the chief of the defense, the heart of the defense, of course, at the time. Oli Borovka was a proven and very hard, tough to play defender. And then I think we had a problem because there was no real second defender. And there was Thomas Wolter playing in the final, but he was not a proven defender. He started as a striker. And then backbone, of course, it was Mirko Votava and Dieter Eils playing in the heart of the holding midfield, and Winton Rufer, the striker. I think that was the backbone of the team. Marco Bode was still very young, 22 years old, played in some games, played an important role. Manny Bockenfeld was on the right side in midfield. The problem, well, when you talk of problems now, it seems strange, but when you look at the team, there were some things missing. A proven second striker. Alofs came in, but you couldn't really rely on him because he was obviously 35 years old and problems with his knee as well. What we needed was, I think, a dynamic and attacking midfielder. And that came in Andy Herzog in 1992. But if you see at the team backbone, Bratseth, Borovka, Votava, Eils, Rufer.
And besides Alofs, you still have Frank Neubarth, another veteran. And we have to mention that Winton Rufe was from New Zealand.
Yeah.
You also have younger strikers like Marinus Bester, and the Dutchman Arie van Lent, who I don't think they featured as much. Yes.
That's right. But still with Marinos Besta, I think typical of Rehagel as well, he brought in the quarterfinal against Galatasaray in the first game, and he scored the winning goal, which was very important, of course. So he brought players in who sometimes only played one game or so, but they played for him. They did it for him. That was basically the secret of his tenure. People in the dressing room played for him, performed for him.
Now, at the beginning of this season, was a European trophy seen as a realistic expectation for the club?
I wouldn't think unrealistic because, I mean, there were still cup winners of one of the biggest leagues. We see England, Spain, Italy, Germany, and France. But on the other hand, there were, if you look at the teams playing, there were great teams: Manchester United, Atletico, Monaco, Roma, Spurs, Porto. Of course, they were not really, could be called favorites, but it wasn't totally unrealistic as well. Expectation, I would think nobody really expected that you have to go and win the cup. But let's see how far we can go. And on our day, we can beat everyone.
How was the relationship of Otto Rehagel with the fans in general in this season?
Not great. It never had been. I mean, that was not one of his biggest strengths, to communicate to the supporters nor to the media. And as we, I think, already mentioned, the Bundesliga season was rather poor. I think it was the only time Bundesliga was played with 20 teams due to
Oh, yes, the reintegration of the Eastern teams. That's right.
yes,
Yes.
like
Yes.
teams like Dresden and Hansa
Yeah.
Rostock played. Yeah, they were very average season for Werder Bremen. And so from the standards of the time, it was a poor season. There was a real moment in March 1992 when they lost 3-1 to Stuttgarter Kickers, not to VfB Stuttgart, to Kickers at home, when people were calling for Reag's departure. Seeing it from now, it's quite weird. On the other hand, they had a point in the team playing lackluster football. It was routine football. And due to the fact, as I mentioned, the team, there wasn't really real change in the team since the championship 1988. And it was a bit quite readable from time to time. So they could be outplayed by a team like Kicker Stuttgart, who were always in the bottom three at this time. They had a point. It was a bit boring football in the Bundesliga from time to time. And there was so much routine in the team that they couldn't play at their best for each other in each other week. So on bad days, it was really terrible football in the Bundesliga.
Okay, well, let's get into the competition.
Yeah.
In the first round, Werder Bremen, they had to face a small Romanian side, FC Baku. So on September 18th, Bremen traveled to Baku and defeated them 6-0. Vinton Rufe scored a hat trick. Bratses, Votava, and Neubarth also scored. On October 1st at Weserstadion, Werder Bremen won 5-0. Kohn scored twice, Els, Bratseth, and Bode scored the other goals. I imagine this was always seen as an easy round, more like a practice session for Werder Bremen.
Right. Right, as you see with the result all over 11-0, I think that was the highest margin of the whole competition. What I found out interesting for the time that didn't even find a hotel in Baku, so they stayed at the German Red Cross, still winning 6-0. But I mean, going to Romania in 1991 was a real adventure of itself, I think. So never mind playing football. And I think all, only 6,000 people in the stadiums, respectively. 3,000 in Romania and 3,000 in Bremen, of course, because there was nothing to play for.
Right.
It seems very strange from nowadays as well, especially when you win the cup a half a year later.
So the second round opponents were stronger. The Hungarians of Ferencváros. On October 23rd at Weserstadion, Werder Bremen narrowly won 3-2 at home, which was not an advantageous score because of the away goals rule. So Neubart scored twice and Klaus Allofs all in the first half. But Hungarian Peter Lipsky scored twice himself to give Ferencváros a slimmer of hope. However, in the second leg on November 6th, Werder Bremen came away with an away win with Marco Bode scoring, and Werder Bremen were through.
Yes, as you mentioned, it was a better team with a great name as well. Going back to the 50s and 60s, that was a great team, Ferencváros. Yeah, the expectation obviously was to go through. Not as easy as against Bacau, but as I mentioned, football in the Eastern Europe was in turmoil at the time. Players were leaving everywhere. But it was quite hard work and a good goal from Marco Bode. As I mentioned, he was only 22 years old. For the team, you mentioned the veterans in the team. I think he was by far the youngest player, was on the score sheet with an important away goal. Because, as you also said, a 1-0 win would have been enough for Ferencváros. So it was a lot tougher, but still, I think, quite comfortably that they went through.
So we come to the spring of 1992 and the quarterfinals. And Bremen have to face Turkish side Galatasaray. Do you remember if Bremen were favored or was there caution at this point?
Both, I would say. Yes, they were favored, but playing Turkish sides was always special. Maybe you will know that there's a lot of big Turkish minority in Germany. So I remember I was at the stadium, Weserstadion, for the first game, and it was really felt like an away game, like Germany against Turkey a couple of weeks ago. And it was all about chip boom boom, chip boom boom. The Galatasaray fans singing and calling, and it still rings in my ears. Turkey, chim boom boom. And then they went in front, Galatasaray, after Werder had wasted several big chances. And then, as I said, Stefan Kohn and Marinos Besta turned it around. And that was maybe the turning point for the whole cup season. Because would they have lost at home? I think no way they would have been going through. That
Yeah.
was hard work.
So this match was on March 4th, and the Polish striker Roman Kozecki scored for Galatasaray
Yeah.
in the first half. Now we have to mention both Kohn and Bester. They both came on as substitutes. Stefan Kohn replaced Rufer in the 31st minute, and Bester replaced Günther Hamann in the 55th minute. So Stefan Kohn scored with like 10 minutes remaining, and with a few minutes left, Bester headed in the winner. But still, it was still a slender lead. And just like the match against Ferencváros, a 1-0 scoreline would have eliminated Werder Bremen.
Yeah.
So the second leg, it was in Istanbul on March 18th. And Werder Bremen came away with a scoreless tie. Dieter Els was sent off in the last minute, but
Yeah.
Bremen held on and they were through to the
Yeah.
semifinals.
Yeah, but there was a remarkable game in the Turkish snow. There was snow in March in Istanbul and chaotic surface. I think it was all like you imagine noise in front of the hotel. They came through it, but it was only about parking the bus and hitting it into the opposite half. And then I think nearly in the final minute, there seemed an inevitable goal for Galatasaray to make it 1-0, but then the ball stopped in the kind of snow and water. on the pitch so that Olli Reck could catch the ball, but there was a Turkish player ready to shoot from 5 meters out or something. So that was a tough thing. And the game should have never been played on the surface, but that was the time. They were still playing. So through to the semifinal.
Yes. And we should also mention that in this match, Oliver Reck was also booked, and that's important for later on.
Yeah.
So now we come to the semifinals, and Bremen are facing experienced Belgian side Club Brugge, who were about to win the Belgian league title that season as well.
Yeah.
I imagine Bruges were looked upon as on equal footing with Bremen at this point.
Yeah, I think we were favored, but it was always going to be a tough game. Everybody knew about the hostile atmosphere at Brugge, but the expectation clearly was to go through now. And it would have been a major disappointment not to go through to the final, I think, at this stage. Winton Rufer said he never has seen in his life such a heated atmosphere or hated atmosphere like he's experienced in Brugge before, half an hour before the game already. So, and then they scored after 5 minutes with Amo Kachi, the player that highly rated, right, but only 19 years old, but never, I think in his later years, never really played up to the expectations. But at this time, he seemed like a wonder boy and scored after 5 minutes. So that was a really tough game. I listened on the radio. That was a tough 85 minutes to come.
Yeah, this match was on April 1st at Bruges, and yeah, like you said, after 5 minutes, Amokachi scored, and this would be Werder Bremen's only loss in this campaign.
Yeah.
So the objective was to score a minimum 2 goals for the return match at Weserstadion on April 15th. In this match, Werder Bremen succeeded in scoring the 2 goals needed. Marco Bode scored in the 31st minute, and Manfred Bokenfeld scored in the 60th minute. Werder were through. However, Oliver Reck was booked again, and that ruled him out for the final. But Werder were through to their first ever European final.
In the first game, also Reck had to replace by Jürgen Rollmann in goal due to injury, and then in the second game he was back in goal but got his yellow card, so he was out for the final. But yeah, he took some strange goals in the Bundesliga season. So I mean, he was number one for several years, but I think some people thought maybe it's not the worst thing to replace him, because he took some strange goals in the Bundesliga this season, some very freakish goals. It seems from now, that was a big loss when he couldn't play, but the expectation of Jürgen Rollmann to play a good game in the final, and he did.
So in the final, Werder Bremen were to face French side Monaco, managed by Arsène Wenger. Now, what was the general outlook of the German press and the fans about this encounter?
I think in general, I would think, yeah, are we in there with a chance? Yes. Maybe 35 to 65 outsiders, favorites, no. But of course, flying into Lisbon with a view to come back with a cup, of course. And as we mentioned before, there was enough routine in the team, and that proved decisive, I think, because Monaco were frustrated by this, I think. But of course, they had great players, and then in them, Georges Weah, a player we never could afford, of course. So they had to be favorites.
Were players like Georges Weah or Yuri Zhorkaev, Were they known to German fans at this point, or were they under the radar as far as the knowledge of the German fans?
Not like nowadays, but you can read it and just open the internet and you can read it everywhere. There was no internet obviously at the time, so but there was German Kicker magazine or other sources you could get your information from. And Via was a name, of course. Djorkaeff, I think, was very young at the time, and he only came from the bench in the game. As you were a big fan, you could, of course, inform yourself about the team. So that was where it came from. When you looked at the names, you would say, we are outsiders in with a chance. There was respect, of course, because some of the names were really had effect on what people were thinking about the final. But on the other hand, I mean, they would have been respected Klaus Allofs, most notably because he played in France. He was at his time, I think he was we could say, world-class striker. He won the European Championships in 1980 and was the best goal scorer of the tournament. So as you said, he was not in his prime like George Weah, who was, I think, 26 years old at the time, and Klaus Allofs was 34. Supporters in generally, I think they didn't know the details, but they knew that we were outsiders in there with a chance, I would think.
And we have to mention that just the day before the final, there was a stadium disaster in
Yeah,
France at Furiani at Bastia that killed 13 fans and injured hundreds. That was clearly in the minds of the French as they faced Bremen in Lisbon on May 6th.
yeah.
And the players wore black armbands as a sign of respect. There was not as much of a festive atmosphere for the French because of what had happened. Uh,
Yeah, I think you could say it was a poor atmosphere with only, I think, 15,000 people in the stadium.
oh, yes, we
Seven,
have to mention that the Stadium of Light, the La Luz, holds more than 100,000.
so it was, again, not comparable to modern days where fans like Eintracht Frankfurt fans travel in their 10,000s to Barcelona also. It was not the case in 1992, but Monaco, I think, didn't have a great fan base at all. Nothing against the club, but it's more like a club that I think they don't have that many supporters. And Werder at the time, they were traveling so far, people couldn't afford, or it was not, it generally was not on people's minds like nowadays. Okay, we travel couple of thousand of miles to see the game. They just sat in front of their TVs. Yeah, but several Werder players mentioned it, the disappointment that it was more the atmosphere of a friendly, of a test match. Yeah, but that was all, I think it was only the surroundings. What came, the win, the cup win, it all made up for that. Oh.
And let's remind everyone that Jurgen Rollman started in goal in place of the suspended Oliver Reck. And much to many people's surprise, Klaus Allofs started
Yeah.
because he had lost his place in the team a few weeks before that and was not expected to start.
Hmm.
And Rehagel only notified him just hours before the match that he would be starting. Rehagel said that he took a chance on him because of his experience. He said we
Yeah.
needed experienced players for such a match, and the result vindicated him.
Yeah.
As far as the match itself, it seemed like Monaco had the early initiative in the first like 15, 20 minutes
Hmm.
before Werder Bremen took over. And against the run of play, Alofs scored the first goal in the 40th minute. If you remember the sequence, there was a long cross from the Bremen half towards the right side, and that was headed across by Rufer to the
Yeah.
left, and Alofs just volleyed it. And
Yeah, with his right foot as well.
yeah,
I think Manny Bockenfeld later said it was a foot he only used to stand. And Alaf said, no, I scored half of my goals with the right foot. I think both is untrue. Typical Rehagel as well. He gave him his chance and yeah, he paid it back. Remember Winton Rufer on the night before when Rehagel told the team that Alofs was playing, he called his father and said, no, Dad, now I'm sure we're losing because Alofs, he can't play. He's an injured knee. It's useless, he said. But then both of them scored and made one. That really summed Otto Rehagel up. When he gave players, he knew before, this is the player, I give him the chance to play, to win it for me. And then most of the times the players did it for him.
Yeah.
So he won games where they only had an outside chance because of those special moments and this special relationship with the players. They were so grateful of him as well because he treated them like family members. Inside the team, outside, he seemed from time to time to spectators in the media, he seemed a bit arrogant, maybe like a king. They called him King Otto. But inside his collective, they all did it for each other. That was the real secret about it.
Yeah, the second goal that killed off the game for Monaco was in the 55th minute, where from the middle of the field, basically Alofs sent Rufer through, who just dribbled around Jean-Luc Ettore, the Monaco goalkeeper, and scored into an empty net. And
Yeah.
the match was over at this point.
People said, "Why don't you shoot?" The way he scored the goal was a bit weird because he turned it around the goalkeeper and ran around him on the other side. And then it seemed to take ages until he finally put it over the line. And there were two Monaco players coming in, I think, but made it.
Bremen won their first European trophy. However, we have to mention that Bremen didn't have a good season in the Bundesliga and they finished
Yeah.
ninth, which
Yeah.
was one of their worst placings in the Rehagel era, if I seem to remember.
Yeah.
Now, was this trophy essential in saving a disappointing domestic season?
Well, surely. Nobody really talked about the Bundesliga season anymore after the final. And that, as I mentioned before, in the German Cup, they reached the semifinals again and lost to Hannover, which is a big pain because they were neighbors and only playing in the second division at this time. Lost after penalty, so it was a great chance to reach another final in this year as well. So you could think that they were saving their moments for the cup, for the cups respectively, by underperforming in the Bundesliga. But yes, it was all forgotten, I think, after the win in Lisbon.
Now, what are your personal memories of watching this final and the subsequent celebrations?
Yes, I watched with my father on TV at the time in his living room, and yeah, we had some beers together while the game. Obviously, very, very, very nervous, shouting and crying sometimes, nearly, and then yeah, jubilant, of course, after the goals and the final whistle. I think we both had to do some work in the next morning, so not like the team with their wild party in a Lisbon hotel after, and also the team cut their hairs and went to the next game in Frankfurt without any hairs on their head. But it was so typical as well that then they went 3 days later, they went to Frankfurt, a title chasing side at the time in the Bundesliga for Werder Bremen. The game was totally meaningless and still mentioned to get a 2-2 draw with Rufer and Alof scoring again to deny Frankfurt the German championship. Again, very typical of Rehagel. He said, one, you can celebrate for 1.5 days, but then concentrate on the normal business. If we go to Frankfurt and get a 5 or 6-0 hammering with still alcohol in our blood, the whole cup title will be spoiled. So they went there and came away with an impressive 2-2 draw away against a title chasing side. So it was the whole picture. And I remember with my father after the game, we talked about the development of the club from when I was started to really get into it in the 1979-80 season when they were relegated to the second division for the first time. And Rehagel came in spring of 1981, and how he transformed the club and how everything was falling into place. And yeah, it was a feeling, no wide celebrations, but a feeling of a really good feeling. Yeah.
So, do you remember that night if people went out the street to celebrate by any chance? Or to the city square
Well,
or anything
I
like
mean,
that?
I lived where I live near Hamburg. Still nowadays, they would have gone out to the street. Hamburger SV or St. Pauli would have won something. Yeah, of course. In Bremen, people went out. There were cars in the streets, of course, and celebrating. Next day, when the team came back, celebrating as well. They were kind of getting used to that in 1988 and 1991. Of course, they had celebrations in the town, so it was not totally new, but yeah, there was a lot of celebrations, of course.
Now, do you think this Cup Winners' Cup victory was in a way a catalyst for Bremen winning the Bundesliga title the following season and coming very close in 1995? It was a shot in the arm that they needed for this final few years of Rehagel at Werder Bremen.
First of all, I would say no, because the transfers of the summer of 1992, which were to come, I think they were the most important things. Like I said, a proven defender was missing, and in came Dietmar Beiersdorfer, and he made a big difference. A tall and good header of the ball and scoring goals as well as after corners. And maybe the most important thing, Andy Herzog was coming in the summer of 1992, and that was really the piece we missed. An attacking midfielder, good technicians, good ideas, scoring goals, having speed. That made the big change. And of course, they took the confidence of the titles they won in them, and that gave them reassurance, of course. But I think with the same team, with again no changes, maybe would have ended up in the midfield of the table again, and maybe would have done better in the cup as well. But that was really needed. Too much routine, and it was really needed, and it was delivered in 1992. Really shake up of the dressing room, new blood in it, and Andreas Herzog proved to be the difference. Bernd Hopsch was always also coming in, goal scorer in the winter of January 1993. He also came in from second division Leipzig and scored 7 goals, which was important, and made a lot of goals as well. So, yes, if you take the reassurance the team could take from the titles they won, yes, but I think it was very important to get this change in the lineup. And it was a transformed team. It was the football they played from 1992, summer 92 on, was much more attractive, many more goals scored, and it was good to watch. Until 1991 and 1992, there was a triumph of the routine players doing it for their manager. But then, yeah, that really changed with Andy Herzog coming in, Austrian, with I think more than 100 games for Austria all over. one of the most important players from the last 30 or 40 years. He was, I think.
Now, the 1988 Bundesliga title was seen as a culmination of Otto Rehagel's work. Was this Cup Winners' Cup victory further justification of his work?
Of course, yes. I mean, he proved now that he could win it at every level. German Championship, German Cup, International Cup. I wouldn't say he was at his peak because that was maybe in 1993 with his second championship I mentioned. I think nobody could call him Otto the Second anymore, having won the European title now. That was really, really, for himself, maybe the most important title I could imagine.
So, in closing, how does this 1992 Cup Winners' Cup rank with Bremen fans compared to the other titles won under Rehagel?
I would think mixed feelings. Personally, it's a marvelous achievement, I think, but I rate the national championships higher because, yeah, it is 34 games and against, at that time, against teams like Bayern Munich, Dortmund, Hamburg, Stuttgart, Cologne, and so on, 1988 and 1993. While in the European Cup, yeah, there was, I think, really 5 games you had to prove yourself. Yeah, but it's still on your CV, having won an international title, of course, it's a great thing. And marvelous memories as well. And proving yourself in different countries and different and difficult situations, like in the snow of Istanbul or in the heated atmosphere of Brugge, and in the strange final against a very, very good team. And some fans would really think that was the best night in the history of Werder Bremen. Maybe the best night all overall. I take it as a whole, the whole time from 1998 to 1994 when they won the cup again, in 1995, nearly in his last game, Otto gave us the second championship, the third championship, which wasn't going to happen. I was there in Munich at the time when they lost it, but then to Borussia Dortmund, not to Bayern. And Rehagel went to Munich in the next month. But I take it as a whole, the whole Rehagel area. Also, the time before 1988, when I think people called him Otto II, and they will never win anything under him. When Rudi Völler played, also great football, but conceding too many goals and losing decisive games. That was part of his life until 1987 or so. And then Satisfactory came in with all the titles they won, or the 5 titles he won. So, yeah, it is all in all a great achievement. For me, the best moment was 1992-1993 championship, I think, because it was combined great football with success.
With that, I would like to thank you for this interview and sharing your memories of this adventure. Uh, so, I would urge everyone to please read the main blog article as well for more detail. The link is included on the video upload description with a contact information. So, Hanno, thank you once again and hope to continue discussions on football history.
Yeah, thank you very much. Always a pleasure. Would love to do it again on another topic. Thank you very much, and happy Christmas.
Thank you. Thank you.